This Coast to Coast Entertainment Network program is brought to you by Beside Me Bracelets. Our bracelets are handmade for any occasion. Use the promo code Coast to Coast for 15% off. Visit their website at besideme.com. Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry. With 24-hour shopping available, use the code 160920 and show her some love, like she showed us. Reaper Apparel Company, a commitment to live your most authentic way every single day. Visit reaperapparelco.com for more information and a look at all of their apparel offerings. And by Good Day Embroidery, your local source for custom embroidery, screen printing, and more. Log on to gooddayembroidery.com for more information. Fall is not quite in the air in Southern California, but it is a beautiful, yet though record-breaking temperatures in Southern California on what is a late-night Monday edition of C2C at Night as part of our fall lineup changes announced a couple days ago. It is C2C at Night coming at you now on Monday evenings at 11 p.m. Pacific Time, 1 a.m. Central, alongside that man, James Gonzales, yours truly, Callan McClurg, both joining you here in the oven that is San Diego County. Mr. Gonzales, we're back on the air, starting off a brand new fall slate of programming here on this Monday night. But, man, we were just talking backstage before we came on the air, man, and I don't recall ever a time in my 30 years living in San Diego, California, of having a late summer, early fall as torturous as this has been by SoCal standards, my man, of triple-digit weather, power going down, don't run the air conditioner between 4 and 9 o'clock in the afternoon or evening, running multiple fans, cold showers in the morning just to, get yourself ready for the day. But, James, we're back, though, man, on C2C at Night. A lot of good stuff planned for the evening. How we doing tonight, my man? Good to see you as always. Welcome aboard.
Yeah, again, thank you for the schedule change. Tuesday nights going into Wednesday mornings, I would always get up, having to get up early. But Monday going to Tuesday, I go in, a little bit later. So it gives me the freedom to, stay the night up and enjoy it while it's cool outside for now, knowing that yellow thing or that orange thing is going to eventually come out. Monday, can't trust that day, but it's okay. I do have to give a shout out, of course, to all the firefighters. I can smell the smoke going through the vents here and through the windows. There's a fire on base here at Camp Pendleton and another one in Orange County, other one by Lake Elsinore, and then there's a big one by San Bernardino, I think, or Highland, to be specific, I think. And that one has burned, I think, almost 24,000 acres. Oof. And when you think about that, that's a ridiculous amount. And it's still going, still spreading fast. And firefighters, they have one of the most important jobs in the world, and you just have to give it up to them every time. And it's always, this season is always just the worst. September through, pretty much November. It's always the worst around here, and just something to monitor. I keep looking north, every day, looking to see if, anything has popped up. And unfortunately, you have the ocean view that looks nice, but then you have darkness on the other side. And it's just making it eerie around here for right now. But I'm good to be indoors and talking with you.
Yeah, and, before, James, we get to all the sports talk today, and I was actually thinking about that on Saturday. Our Hockey League commissioner, Josh Fontaine, who you folks have seen on Puck and Roll with his first appearance a couple weeks ago, his parents came out to our games on Saturday, and I had gotten there late because I was working college football on Saturday. And his dad and I had gone to grab Subway. It's kind of what Josh and I do is like a pregame ritual. We go and grab Subway for lunch when we get to the rink, and we set up shop and get ready for our two games of the day. and his parents being from North Carolina, his dad had asked me, what's more common out here? Is it the fires or is it the earthquakes? And I said, well, the quakes happen every so often, but you don't get those ones that are like the massive 6, 7, 8, 9 Richter scale. But I said, fire season is basically year round now. And I remember James telling him about how bad it was in 2003 and 2007 here in town, where we missed a week of school. My sister-in-law had to be evacuated from her house in Mira Mesa down to where we were living in Pacific Beach. And, family and friends were evacuated. People lost their homes and things like that. So a massive thank you to those first responders on the front lines battling those fires here across all of Southern California here today. With that in mind, folks, again, C2C at night, as you probably have seen, we have juggled up the fall schedule for you folks here. Again, to accommodate James's work schedule on Tuesdays, we have now moved our program to Mondays following J-Mac and the group on Bro Code on Monday nights. Again, we're going to be debuting our C2C game night on Tuesday tomorrow at 9 p.m. Pacific time, 11 o'clock in the evening in the Central time. Again, kind of a brief rundown. We're going to have panel members in here, and we're going to play one of 3 games at random. So either the Immaculate Grid, the match game, or Fast Money from Family Feud. And we'll be going with that on Tuesdays, beginning at 9 o'clock tomorrow. There'll be one game picked at random. Whoever's playing, whoever joins the stream will be a part of our program, whether it's the grid, whether it's Fast Money, or the match game, hosted by yours truly over here in San Diego, California as well. With that in mind, though, folks, with James and I also, by the way, James and I are nearing 2,500 views, believe it or not, already. So if you are, in fact, up late at this late hour on the Monday going into a Tuesday, again, if you're up and want to talk some sports with us, again, fire away in the live chat box, live on Facebook, YouTube, or live via Twitch. We'll do our absolute best, as always, to make sure that your commentary is read live on the air here on this Monday into Tuesday. All right, James, enough of us flapping our gums. We'll now, get into some sports talk on this Monday. Of course, James, winding down the Major League Baseball regular season. Playoff picture kind of beginning to come into focus. Not quite, though, still, as we kind of look over some of the standings in Major League Baseball. With where things stand, James, as we have said, though, my man, we were talking a lot our last show about the interchanging American League East and the top wild card seed in the American League. How will San Diego, Arizona, and now all of a sudden the New York Mets have entered the chat for that third wild card spot. The Padres kind of going a little bit of a tailspin here recently. Arizona's cooled off. The Mets got hot. Atlanta's cooled off. The Cubs now all of a sudden are getting close to within 5 games of the wild card race as well. Over in the American League, as we said, though, James, New York and Baltimore flip-flopping between the American League East and top wildcard spot. Here comes Kansas City out of the word work. The Twins kind of now coming back to the pack of this rate. Boston hanging around. The Tigers all of a sudden are surging forward as things go. So, James, what a difference, man, a couple of weeks can do from when we were last on here talking about the American League East. Could Arizona or San Diego really catch the Dodgers in the National League West Division? The American League Central. So, James, a lot has changed here, my man, as we now enter soon to be a Tuesday here in early September still. But, James, what, though, has caught your eye, though, in Major League Baseball as we now begin entering that last stretch run here of the regular season has been the NL wild card race, the American League Central, the American League East, or what really has caught your eye with these past 2 weeks of gameplay?
I think last week it was the American League Central, and it was basically because of the Guardians and the schedule, the gauntlet schedule they had. They were playing the Twins. Before that, they were playing the Royals. So, they were, handling business against their foes for the division, and they've got themselves a 3.5 lead, luckily, over Kansas City. Like you mentioned, Minnesota has lost 4 in a row. They're 6 back of that. But all 3, of course, are in it. Kansas City and Minnesota have the second and third wild card spots. So it looks like they'll be able to hold off Boston, Detroit, and Seattle. But you fear that Minnesota, they're just running out of offense. And they're running out of time, it seemingly is like. But you have to give it up to Detroit. I mean, maybe it was that grand slam that sparked them when they...
You never know. It could have.
I forget what day it was.
It was last
Wednesday,
Thursday. Last
Thursday.
Thursday.
Yeah, I mean the team just went crazy when it happened, and they were able to beat San Diego in one of those games. You never know, though. It's just one of those moments, and we all were hoping that Detroit would, you know, be more in the race than before. You know, last year was kind of disappointing. The year before, you knew they were going to be bad, but you were hoping that certain guys would kind of turn up. And Green has been really good. Torkelson is up, but you're hoping he was going to show that first round potential. But their pitching has been awesome. So I'm really just shocked at Detroit being 3 back. And then Boston, you know, they've been in it all year, shockingly. And Seattle, with the moves that they made, you would figure, okay, you have to be in this. You know, if you're keeping Dipoto around, okay, let's not focus on that if you're the locker room. Let's just take care of what we're going to do. Dan Wilson with that new voice in the clubhouse. You know, I got to watch them, I think, live, let's say 2 Saturdays ago. And it looks like they were sort of a new team, of course, with the Rosarena. You would figure that would be the case. It's good to see them not 5 back, but 3 back if you're trying to get in. So Minnesota, if they don't take 2 out of 3 from the Angels this week, they're in true trouble. But yeah, you mentioned NL wild card.
Ooh,
It's
baby.
a doozy.
Wouldn't want it any other way, though, my friend.
Oh, definitely. And this is what they wanted with all of the with the extra wild card spot, was they wanted, you know, more markets in it, so to speak. You got San Diego and Arizona first 2. I think it's going to stay like that. But having the Mets win, 9 in a row?
Yes.
And just, you know, have these walk-offs that sent the place and the players crazy. I mean, when they have walk-offs, it looks like they're at a rave. I mean, when the lights are going and their locker room celebration is crazy. I mean, they're a fun team. And it was just funny, too, because I saw something on Instagram the other day. It had, I think, the 5th game of the season. It was a makeup from a rain delay game.
No one there. Gary Cohen was talking like a golf announcer on SNY.
Like, this is sad. I know it's 5 games in. Yeah, so you saw the same video I did, but to see how...
And what a turn it is, though, from Game 5 of the regular season to, like, doom and gloom. Oh, no, here we go again with the Mets sucking, to now, by September 9th, holy cow, we got a shot to get into the postseason all of a sudden.
And that's all those fans want. They want that, you know, excitement, that fun. You know they're not going to get it from their football teams. So you got to get it from the Mets. So you got to get it from the Mets or the Yankees before Nick basketball comes back and Rangers hockey. So it's just fun. But you knew, I don't see you mentioned the Cubs 5 out, and that's a good story, but you never really expected them to
have
be
less
anything.
than a 0.1% chance to make the postseason for Fangraphs. Sadly.
But you knew with Atlanta, and there's great stories there with Renato Lopez and Chris Sale. They have offensive firepower, but it's nothing like
But not just that, though, James. How Atlanta's done it all without Acuna,
right?
And how they have been like the Walking Dead all season. But holy cow, here they are still jockeying for a playoff spot.
And that's all you could want. I know Brian Sneaker wants everyone to be competitive, and he's always had that on his teams, no matter who's been out. I think the year that they won in 21, they were without Acuna Jr.
Yeah, for half the year, I think, as he blew out the ACL the first time, I believe.
That's what it was on the base pass. And I still remember that, too, because I'm like, no way the Braves are going to win. And for them to be in it and hanging in there is really great to see. So it's really fun. I mean, the division winners, I think it's going to stay like that with Philly, LA, and Milwaukee.
I think the NL Central's already locked up, sadly. That's too big of a hole to
climb out of right.
at this stage of the season.
That's for sure. And I knew Houston was going to come back and take the West. They just have the experience. They have the firepower offensively.
And their own injury problems, too.
That's what they had, like 5 or 6 starters on the IL to start the season, and some of them are back and doing very well. Um, it keeps going back with the Yankees and Orioles. It's probably going to come down to the last weekend of the season there, and yeah, Cleveland should hold on to that one. But it's a lot of fun just with positioning right now. I expect everything to stay the same, but you just wonder if Atlanta will get back and hold off the Mets. But the Mets again, they're just having a lot of fun, and it's fun to watch. I want to see how they play on the road though. In these late year games, I just want to see how they do on the road. But I'm happy for Kansas City, even though they had a 7-game losing slide. I think last week it was finally ended against Cleveland. I got a chance to watch that. I think it was last Wednesday, I think it was. But, to see some of their young players, even without Pasquantano, just able to stay in it. I don't know if he'll come back. Maybe not come back this year, but he had a hell of a season. Bobby Witt Jr. is amazing. The thing is, Callan, I'm trying to figure out if things stay the same way they are, who to give the AL manager to. Do you give it to Stephen Vogt? Do you give it to Quattraro of Kansas City? Do you give it to Joe Esposito of Houston? That I'm trying to figure that out, but to me, I think Stephen Vogt, because it's his first year, and I think people had Cleveland in third place this year. They were hyping up everybody else.
I guess, because of the managerial experience of Stephen Vogt, which was 0 entering the season.
Yeah, so I guess I'd give it to him because they're 20 games above 500 right now. But I'm guessing that's who I would give it to. What would you think?
Yeah, that's you know what, James? That's actually a question that hasn't been discussed whatsoever on any of the national talk shows, whether it's been MLB Network or ESPN during Sunday Night Baseball coverages. They've been so enamored by the NL Rookie of the Year between Merrill and Skeens and Jackson Cheerio and Mason Wynn, or it's been about the MVPs. Can Francisco Lindor actually overtake Ohtani for MVP? I don't know if this late surge can, because I think that they're going to look at the 50-50 potential season that Ohtani will have as like a third MVP for Ohtani. Like he needs any more, hardware in the trophy case as an individual player. But that manager of the year, though, Race James, is an excellent question. I would probably say it boils down to Vogt and Matt Quintaro of Kansas City. I know about Joe Espada with Houston, but again, the Astros have been there. Cleveland, What have they done lately? What have the Royals done since 2015? I look at it more of that way, as opposed to, the resume of the Astros is, 2 World Series championships, 7 straight ALCS appearances, and yada, yada, yada. But I look at the guy with no experience who recently retired to take over this job in Cleveland, and a guy in Matt Quintaro turning around a Royals organization who really, since that World Series run, hasn't done a whole lot since 2015, in almost a decade, practically. So I go Vogt and then Quintaro 1-2 in that discussion.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that, just because you mentioned Vogt with no... When they hired him, too, I was thinking, like...
This will be interesting.
Okay. That's... I guess, the thing is, though, being a former catcher, you kind of have control of the game in a way from your squatting position.
A la Bruce Bochy. A la Bob Melvin.
And Mike Scioscia.
And
whomever else you want. Bob Melvin.
Yeah.
So you kind of trust the catchers. Joe Girardi, when he was managing. So it's a great thing to see that a catcher getting back the reins of a team and having success. I forget where Quattro, or no, I call him Quattro.
Matt Quintaro?
Quintaro. I forget. Was he part of the White Sox? No, that was.
But he definitely was somewhere
else
prior to getting this role in Kansas City, and I just love that question, though. I think it can go either way. I just think, though, that when you have a first-time guy getting control of an organization on the field, again, like I said, I know about Joe Espada, but again, that is a Astros ball club who's already been there, done that, 7 straight ALCS appearances and multiple rings on the finger for the World Series, tomfoolery involved or not. But I give more benefit of the doubt, though, to a guy like Stephen Vogt. And I guess, though, James, my good man Brent DeMoss is in the chat box, and Brent says about the NL wildcard race and the hometown Friars. He says, fellas, I do believe that the Padres are still in, but we all know that the team struggles playing against teams who are below 500. Watch out for the Mets who are rolling in. Do feel like LA wins the NL West, but we all know they struggle in that first round with a winking face emoji. I think, though, James, that I just, as much as I love the Padres being in the race, I just hate whenever this ball club loses and this whole entire fan base is like, oh my God, the sky's falling. It's 2010 all over again. It's like, can y'all just chill for a sec? Would you rather lose now, or would you rather lose in the World Series or lose in the CS again or lose in the postseason? If you're going to lose, get it done now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say that this weekend, though, was rough, and they've had a tough time playing those teams who are below 500. I think, James, you probably would agree with me. And I would say this, though, as a former player. It is difficult to get up, though, for a game when you're playing in a inferior team who is below 500. They're out of the playoff race. The Rockies, for example, for heaven's sakes, come to mind. And now San Francisco comes to mind, too, because this team has been a perennial thorn in the side of the Padres this season, whether it's the Bob Melvin effect or the Blake Snell effect, whatever you want to call it. But it is difficult, though, for a ball club, San Diego, the Yankees, any team out there, and that's the thing, James, I always love telling people, anybody can beat anybody any given day of the week, ending in the letter Y. We literally, I think, James, saw the White Sox beat Boston a couple days ago, or they beat Baltimore
8-1.
Anybody can beat anybody any day of the week. So,
that's
but I do,
baseball.
though, James, I do think, though, Padres make it in. Yeah. And rather than, though, kind of get these losses out of the way now and kind of get hot again in that final week of the year playing LA and Arizona. And I feel like, though, James, that Padre ball club is going to be motivated entering that final week of the season, regardless if there's no division in play or not. That's going to be a motivated ball club playing against LA and jockeying for home field with Arizona in Phoenix in a couple of weeks.
So I was looking at Matt Quatraro, and he was the Cleveland assistant head coach 2014. Then the Rays hired him to be the third base coach in 2017. So that when they were playing Cleveland, they kept highlighting that. So that's where I got the connection from. Now that the fact that they're battling for first, that's really a cool thing for him. And again, to have those teams not being talked about, at least we can talk about it. And
precisely.
That's what I like about it. It's not the Ohtani 50-50 watch. It's not Aaron Judge, his pursuit of 50 home runs, whatever it is. I like going to the stories of, the unsung or the underdog. Speaking of that, oh, man, the White Sox, I love. I hate that, for the players. I hate that it's happening to them.
Without a doubt. Absolutely.
But, man, it's something to watch. It's like, okay, the Angels are playing 6 games next week against the White Sox for a part of 2 weeks, I should say.
Yeah.
And a home and away, of course. And I'm going to be interested just because they're chasing history the wrong way. It just makes the ownership look worse, especially if the Angels lose, half of those games against the White Sox. It makes them look bad, too. So, I know we're talking AL Central, but just looking down there where it's like, man, they're the only team not 500. The rest of them are all 500. And I think I had just the divisional winner, and I think I picked Minnesota this year to win the Central, and that was it. There was not going to be a wild card coming out of there. And literally all 4 can be in there.
We may have 2 wild card teams out of the AL Central all of a sudden.
Yeah, just imagine if all 3 got in.
Holy smokes.
And then you have the White Sox opposite of it. It would be amazing. It would be one of the best, quirkiest, I think, things ever. The standings. I think that would be so quirky.
That also does kind of, in a way, scare me a little bit, very small. that the Padres' final home series of the year is against the White Sox before they enter that massive week against the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks. Like, oh boy, this could be like fork in the road in a very teeny tiny small way, but still, I mean, this is going to be a very great run towards the very end of the regular season. With that, James, also on Monday, the Major League Baseball front office put out the nominees for the annual Roberto Clemente Award, put out that is given out to the one player who, again, goes way above and beyond and embodies Roberto Clemente's character of play on the field, but also humanitarian contributions to whatever the cause is. Again, all but teams nominate one player. Just locally in town, it's Mookie Betts of the Dodgers, Mike Trout with the Angels, and Manny Machado for the San Diego Padres, who are the three local guys who were voted to represent their ball club for the Roberto Clemente Award. And James, I read the list and I read about, what Mike Trout has done with his wife for suicide prevention, what Mookie Betts and his wife have done for underserved youth and the African-American community and the LA Food Bank via the Dodgers Foundation, and obviously reading about Manny Machado and what he's done for the whole time he's been in San Diego, and really ever since Peter Seiler's very untimely passing in November of last year, how Manny has certainly elevated his philanthropy efforts away from the field. But then, James, it got me wondering about the 27 other players, is that as much as we hear all the time, James, of like the scrutiny that these guys face for, you're getting paid millions to play a kids game, for heaven's sakes, and we have, issues happening away from sports in our local communities. I got me thinking about something I think that we talked about when we had discussed Freddie Freeman's son, Max, being sick, and how the baseball community rallied around the Freemans and around the Dodgers. And I think that this award, I think, is such a great thing that baseball, I think all sports do, is that, yeah, these guys are athletes. Yes, these guys get paid a lot of money, but look at what these guys do with that money away from just buying yachts and Maseratis and expensive mansions. They are out here putting boots on the ground, getting their hands dirty to take care of issues that, we always talk about every 4 years that needs to be addressed. And a lot of times they don't get addressed, yet we have these, athletes who go out there and do some of these jobs to help out. Now, it's not going to be, the all-NBN where everything gets solved because of pro athletes. But certainly, James, I do love this award, though, because it really, I think, does show that other side, though, that we never really talk about, on podcast or in TV or on TV or radio or in newspaper print, because we only focus on the game's wins and losses. And then, when athletes do stuff like this, it does kind of, in a way, tell me there is still good in this world.
Yeah, I'm looking through all of them now, and this is going to sound totally like a big B answer, but there's, no wrong choice. I'm looking through all of them, and I'm thinking to myself, oh yeah, a lot of them have, do what they've done where they either started a charity or they visit hospitals and all that. I do kind of side with one in particular, and I don't think he's with the Red Sox or he's injured or something, but
Liam Hendricks.
Yeah, Liam Hendricks. I really followed him, but they're saying, yeah, he makes off the field contributions. He beat, remember, stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in 2023. He's remained dedicated to visiting with cancer patients during homestands and while traveling with the team. He has the Cancer Institute Young Adult Program. That could be a really tough time for anybody, but especially a young adult. And then he's a staunch ally of the LGBTQ plus community. Passionate about animal rescue. I would, again, no wrong answer, but looking what he went through, last year and beating the cancer and then doing all what he does, I think it'd be a nice award for him to win. For him to even be around is really good to see, but it's more of the same. There's more like, charities being done, and then You mentioned Mike Trout visiting hospitals. I think that's a thing that, everybody.
And him and his wife have been very vocal advocates for suicide prevention, because I believe Jessica lost her brother to suicide in 2018, I believe.
That's something I really never knew. So, yeah, whatever that hotline is, I'm always the advocate of people calling that. It was always a show I listened to, and listen to like teens or whatever, young adults have issues like that. And I think it was the Hope line.
Yes.
And
then the 24-hour crisis hotline too.
I'd always listen to those stories. So anything like that, it always strikes me. And it's rare that I get to help someone, but I love doing that. But yeah, again, there's no wrong answer, but Liam Hendriks' story is just out there. So I'd probably give it to him.
Yeah, I think away from Southern California, Liam Hendriks, great guy. I think, universally loved because of his battle with cancer. And again, like James said, and I'm sure if Brandon Herrera was with us, he'd say the same thing, that there's no wrong answer when picking a award that, again, James, goes to, a player that, I've heard stories about, we've heard about, we've seen highlights, but never, I think, got to really see Roberto in his like actual prime because of what he was doing with the earthquake relief, though. And just kind of quickly about like Manny Machado, for example, in San Diego, I read his the full write-up on him, and literally, like, I recall like the day or two after Peter Seidler passed away, Manny was on the spot helping out with some stuff, I think with food drives for Thanksgiving, stuff for the holidays. I think he just this season alone, he went and gave like 100+ new bikes to underserved youth at a underserved school down in the South Bay. He's helped inject money into programs for schools who are underserved in the county that does not get a lot of state funding from state government. But I also, James, think, though, even with all that, I recall, I think, May of last year on my birthday, when the announcement got made that San Diego was now became the 30th franchise for Major League Soccer. And who shows up at the podium? Manny Machado, new investor in San Diego FC, like fully planting his flag of "this is my city." And seeing that happen was, something I don't think, James, we've seen a baseball player actively take ownership of a club. Maybe Mookie Betts, maybe with Fenway Sports. I don't think so, though. But I think Manny's like the only guy I know of who's like taken a role like that on top of launching his own foundation. He's brought underserved kids into to the ballpark for batting practice and all that good stuff. But again, no wrong answers. And whoever wins it certainly is going to be very much well-deserved of that honor to, again, keep Roberto Clemente's spirit and his legacy alive in Major League Baseball. All right, James, week 1 of the NFL season has come and gone. From Thursday into Friday, into Sunday, into Monday. James, give us your thoughts in a nutshell, my man, from what we saw from week 1 of the NFL season to kick off the 2024 campaign.
I don't know what that was. Week 1 started with a delay on Thursday night. There was thunderstorms and whatever else in Missouri going on. They did play that game. They did have the banner ceremony and all that for them Chiefs. Real close game there. Lamar after a while showed his magic, and Mahomes getting his rookie receiver Xavier Worthy a couple touchdowns. Kelsey finally got his. We saw Taylor Swift a couple of times. And the Chiefs held on just by this much of live leads.
By a toenail.
Someone said if his shoe size wasn't 14, if it was 13, he would have had the end zone and the touchdown. Ravens
I loved Pat Mahomes' quote, though. Wear white cleats next time, buddy.
Yeah, that would have helped.
Even then,
that wouldn't help.
Even then, I still think it would have been ruled out of bounds.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, you would have to wear green, but there's
even
no
then,
way you would wear green.
Still be touching the white line.
Yeah, because they have those grooves in the turf where you could see everything now. It's not like the old days where it just pops up. The sod or whatever pops up. We had Friday night football. No, not high school football, but in Brazil.
Sao Paulo.
You heard all the bad things about the conditions and it felt like a slip and slide. It looked like for those players out there. We had a really close game.
But somebody's
Packers.
quarterback got hurt on a soccer pitch in Brazil, which goes back to what I had been vocal about, James. Stop putting regular season games that mean something in the regular season in a foreign country.
Especially on week 1. Did you see how unhappy those Packer players were flying
and
arriving? Yeah, I didn't like that week 1.
I would have loved to have had the Surfafaris playing a concert, just playing Wipeout on loop the whole game.
Yeah, it was really embarrassing. Saquon Barkley, though,
and even worse, James, wasn't it a Peacock only broadcast on Friday?
That it was, yeah. But I was listening to most of it at work. I couldn't get it off. But yeah, Saquon Barkley had 3 touchdowns. He could have had a 4th. I think there was a penalty that called it back. But he certainly showed what the Giants were missing on Sunday. But yeah, Jordan Love, what we thought was a worse ACL injury, was only a sprain.
And
he'll be out 4 to 6 weeks, but he'll try to get back in the 4th week. The Eagles get that close one. Go to Sunday's action, and the Panthers are still the Panthers. Ouch. They lost 47-10. I think they were down at 1 point, 41-0 to the Saints. Derek Carr had fun. Taysom Hill, all those guys. Bryce Young got some stats later on in garbage time, but the Panthers still look like the worst team in the NFL. Speaking of the worst, Daniel Jones, man. The Giants picked, Neighbors to be their receiver of the future, but who's going to give them the damn ball? Daniel Jones threw a couple of, interceptions. One was a Van Ginkel interception. That was amazing. The Vikings went on to win 28-6. Sam Darnold, by the way, I got to talk about him real quick. And luckily Jim Rowe mentioned this, where it's like, hey, he didn't have the talent with the Jets, and he didn't have the talent with the Panthers. He went last year to the 49ers just to play one game to back up Purdy. Now he's on a team where it's easy to throw in the air and somebody's going to go get it. Jefferson, Addison, and Osborne. And then they have a couple
weapons are around him for the first time in his entire career.
So maybe this is a year where he surprises and takes off. Because that wasn't happening in that stadium with the Jets. So I think it was good for him to go to the Meadowlands or MetLife and kind of exercise those demons. I think that was great to see. There was an upset. The Patriots held on to beat the Bengals 16-10. All that drama with not Chase Young, but Jamar Chase. And his contract and the extension not being done. You're playing on that 1-year deal. T. Higgins is pissed because eventually he's going to have to go. You can't pay everyone. So there's a lot of drama going into that Bengals game. And it was a credit to the first-year head coach. I should know his name. But he got the win. They Gatorade him after the game.
Jerron Mayo.
Jerron Mayo. Thank you. I finally got it. So it was great to see him. DeAndre Stevenson had a great running game. And then Jacoby Brissett, he was just the game manager. So that was great to see. And you love seeing those upsets to teams that you don't think are going to have a chance this year to surprise you. Man, that Steelers-Falcons game, I was watching mostly of that because it was local.
Boring.
The Steeler defense, and most of all, TJ Watt, he was in the Falcons' backfield more than the running backs were. I mean, he was in there forcing fumbles, getting sacks. Kirk Cousins, he got paid all that money,
Rusty.
and he got all those bruises. The same amount of $1 million he has, the same amount of bruises he woke up with on Monday. He got killed. I think it was more than 5 sacks for the Steeler defense. Justin Fields got the start. Russell Wilson, dressed up as if he was going to play. He was inactive, but he was wearing his whole uniform, his pads and helmet and everything. But again, he was inactive. That was totally a Russell Wilson move. They
Steelers
said
country, let's ride.
They don't want to hear that. somebody had sources saying that he was pouting after the game, a little jealousy maybe, that Justin Fields, even though he didn't throw for a touchdown, he had some good throws, he managed the game, and they won. So the Falcons, all that hype, it's gone for a week. There was a AFC South rival game with the Texans holding on to the Colts. That game was really fun and back and forth. And I can't wait till the week when they play each other in Houston. I can remember last year, that's how the Texans got into the playoffs, by beating
Final
the
game
Colts.
of the regular season.
And that was on January 6th. So that was a lot of fun. And, I don't know what the Colts are expected to be, but Anthony Richardson, he had a couple of tremendous throws under pressure. The Cardinals had a 17-3 lead in Buffalo. Buffalo remembered who they were, mostly Josh Allen, throwing to wide receiver 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, but you didn't really know their names. You knew the tight ends, but you forgot about Matt Collins, former Raider and Falcon. He had a touchdown catch, and we had our first kickoff return with the new rules by one of the Cardinals. So that was great to see. By the way, there was 46 interceptions thrown in week 1.
Holy.
I couldn't believe I heard that. That's a record high, of course. Caleb Williams started for the Chicago Bears. He didn't finish well. He threw for 93 yards. He kind of used his legs, but he was off throwing. Will Levis.
And not one single offensive touchdown, and they still win the game.
The Bears did the scoring the way they know how, defensively.
Yes.
And they were given a touchdown by Will Levis. He just threw that thing in the air, falling to his knees. I forget who.
It instantly became a meme by going like this.
Yeah. I mean, everything we want Will Levis to be, it's this. It's not that. The Bears get the win defensively. Hopefully, Caleb Williams can kind of show what he did in preseason. But the schedule only and the weather gets cooler. Tyreek Hill, the man, was arrested before the game coming into Hard Rock Life Stadium, whatever it's called.
Hard
Rock Stadium. I think Calais Campbell was also arrested, one of his veterans there. Then he came in and he ran over the Jaguars.
Who also had a huge lead on Sunday and couldn't hang on.
Yeah, so that was fun, but it was more like maybe the Jaguars are still in it, going up against a good opponent. We're hoping to see better from Jacksonville. Tua did just enough, but at first, the first half was kind of like you mentioned, Jags were up and Tua looked lost, and you thought, oh man, what the hell's going on?
Overthrowing Hill and a couple times. Like, it was just a little bit off at the early going.
A lot of pressure on that new contract, being the leader, being the guy. Sure. But he's a leader of men. You can see that definitely. We get to the afternoon games, and the Seahawks with their beautiful throwback jerseys. The field was blue, or the end zones were blue. They had the old Seahawk helmet logo there.
Love them.
It was great. Then you had the start of Bo Nix, and he was all right. But the Seahawks defense, they're young, but they're going to be good for years. Geno Smith, he had some good throws. They ran the ball well with Murray.
They got to hang on, too.
Yeah, Seahawks held on 26-20. You're expecting both teams to be in it, more Seahawks than the Broncos. Up in Southern California, the Raiders were in LA to face that team with Jim Harbaugh, the first head coaching game for him. Got the win. It was a real tight game. Field goals back and forth. Basically like 2022, the game I went to, where first half looked promising. Then the Raiders could not stop anyone. This time,
and then J.K. Dobbins ran all over them.
This time it was J.K. Dobbins. J.K., the Raiders thought they were going to win. Just ran through him. I think he had, 68 yards rushing, whatever it was.
Couple of touchdowns.
And the Raider defense, what they couldn't do offensively, just showed up really, really bad. And it's funny, Minshew threw for a lot of yardage, but no touchdowns, basically. So that was really unfortunate. And Harbaugh gets the style win that he wanted, where you're rushing the ball, you're running it down the throats. That's why you draft Joe Alt the offensive tackle. That's why you put him there.
Does that include fights in the end zone and more so than the fights in the stands that day or on Sunday?
Now that was viral. That went amazingly
nothing new,
viral.
folks. In case you're curious, nothing new. Chargers, Raiders, nothing new. Absolutely nothing new.
You can change the cities, but you can't change the fights.
Bingo. Thank you.
I understand it was hot, and being at SoFi Stadium that time of year with this temperature, it feels like a greenhouse in there.
Oh,
it
man.
is awful, especially if you're sitting high up.
Yes.
You're right there where the heat rises. It's pitiful. Speaking of pitiful, the Cleveland Browns, who wear an orange helmet but are called the Browns.
And apparently their mascot's an elf, I heard, or a dog
some from the 50s. It's an elf. That's at midfield if anybody wants to look at that ugliest, hideous thing. And you can say that the same thing for the LA Ram logo.
Looks like a banana.
Well, I was going to say something else. The Cowboys won 33-17. No problem
and Dak
for Dak.
Got paid, buddy.
Dak got paid. I think it was all planned out for Jerry and Dak to get it done right before the game, to get it done so you can have all the news before the game, and the 4-year extension, the most pretty much ever. Definitely
like 60 million AAV, I think, or something along those lines.
Eventually, yeah, we'll get up to that. Certainly showed like he needed that. Lamb did well. Ezekiel Elliott looked a little good right now, but we're going to see how eventually.
Maybe fountain of youth, but it's only week 1.
You're right. That's what I'm thinking. The Browns, though, I wanted Tom Brady to criticize him more, Deshaun Watson more, but I think he was just laying off because he knew, how a quarterback is supposed to play. But yeah, Deshaun Watson looked awful, and remember he has that big contract. And I was looking up earlier how much to get rid of him. The cap hit would be just amazingly
it'd be egregious.
Ridiculous. Yeah, it was like 112 1 year, 116 the next year, so 25, 26, just to get rid of him and start over. But you can't add anybody. You would just have to tank and just trade for a bunch of draft picks. But there's no way you can do that. So they're stuck with him basically. Jerry Jeudy did catch a touchdown, but there was really nothing else. I mean, Cowboy offense, defense, special teams, they all did well. So that's what they needed. Speaking of teams that had Baker Mayfield but lost, I'm talking about the Browns and the Panthers having bad days. The opposite happened for Baker Mayfield. I'm happy for him. Remember, he got a $100 million deal in the offseason. He's found a home in Tampa with the Bucs. They hold on to beat the Commanders 37-20. That game was just a bunch of Jalen Daniels, like 2-yard passes, and it was like yak after. There was nothing really impressive. I know he had a rushing touchdown late in the game in garbage time, but you were hoping to see a little more from Jalen Daniels. But the Buccaneer defense, I think, did a good job of game planning him. The Sunday night game was a rematch of the NFC wildcard game of last year.
Oh, what a barn burner. That was a beaut last night.
At first, though, it was 17-3. The Lions led for a while, and in the second half,
door open, and the Rams came back in, even losing Puka Nacua.
Lost him at halftime. He's on the IR. He'll miss at least 4 games with the knee issue.
Yeah, that
he had
is
in
one
spring
team,
training.
James. I think that I've seen. Again, I don't watch a lot of the games, but that is one team I've heard though that they're just been crushed so far by injuries. Is the Rams
mostly on the offensive side? Tyler Higbee, the longtime tight end, he's out. They kept showing him in the first half because Stafford was kind of struggling to find people. But second half, the Rams kept chipping away. Ended up being 20-20 at overtime. And then David Montgomery ran the ball right down LA's throats. LA's defense was really tired. I know
you could tell they were gassed, I think, too, at points in overtime.
Maurice Jones-Drew, excuse me, who does a great job with
JB Long.
Yeah, those two. Like, I was listening mostly to the game because I was out to beat the Heat. I love listening to him. Jones-Drew is just tremendous. And he kept mentioning about the defense being out there. And the long drives that Goff and Montgomery had, and Jameson Williams. He's going to be that second receiver to St. Brown for the Lions. It would be nice if they met again in the wild card. I think that would be fun. The Monday night game that we all thought was going to be fun turned out to be nothing.
A
clunker. The Jets had Rodgers, and it was close at first. And remember, Christian McCaffrey was out, I think, with a hamstring injury. Hopefully it's not a lingering thing. Remember, he's on the Madden.
Yeah, that came out, I think,
cover.
if I'm not mistaken. I think that announcement came out about an hour before kickoff.
4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I remember looking on my X feed, and it says CMC out. I'm like, and it's trending. I'm like, whoa, maybe the Jets have a chance. They could not stop the rookie Mason, and
not so fast, my friend.
Yeah, he had, I think, he had 28 carries, 147 yards, 1 touchdown. They didn't really game plan for Jordan Madison. They had all that talent on the Jets defense.
I think a lot of people could tell that they did not game plan for that to happen.
Yeah, I think they were more focused on McCaffrey, and you get rid of him, then you get rid of the passing game too. But I think it was all about Mason tonight, the third-year back who I think only had like 40 or 46 carries the first 2 years of his 49 career, and he just went off. Rodgers did throw a touchdown as well as Tyrod Taylor, excuse me. But it was more about the running game of the 49ers, the defense just doing well. And that offensive line, even with Trent Williams going out, because he's not in game shape just yet. Remember, when Ayuk took off, for the holding, he also held out. Yeah. Say, he wants more money. I want more money. And I'm more important to the team. And then when David Pearsall got, shot and robbed at in San Francisco, Trent Williams came back to the locker room and said, yeah, just pay me and we'll get it done. I like what this kid has. And I know Pearsall, I think he wanted to even play tonight, but there was no way he was going to play from the wounds he suffered. So week 1 just had about everything. An arrest before the game, arrest after the game, after the game, contract
overtime,
extension.
walk-off winner for the Lions.
Yeah, we had
the Jets, and the Browns are still the Browns.
The Jersey football team suck again.
When they look like the Montreal Canadiens, for heaven's sakes, come on now.
Yeah. So again, week 1 is always just a random thing, but to me, it seems like everything. But I've been wrong the last couple of years. It seems like after week 4, everything kind of evens out. You know who's going to be good and bad.
Yeah, guys are knocking the rust off still, even with the preseason and things like that. A few thoughts from our good man, John Alcorn. I think we all agree Watson is doo-doo. To think that this team got rid of Baker Mayfield, goodness gracious, man, yes.
Remember, it was Odell's dad who, kind of called him out on plays, and Cleveland said, or Odell was probably telling the Browns, like, hey, if you want me, get rid of Baker. Now they don't have either. And they're stuck with that Watson deal.
And here, the last time I watched football was during the COVID season. And here, Baker Mayfield led that Cleveland organization to their first playoff berth, like in 20, 25 years. And now all of a sudden he's in Tampa Bay. John also says, James, Dan Quinn might be the worst option for the Commanders head coach, especially with a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, when I saw that move happen in the offseason, I was just pissed because I thought Dan Quinn would go back home to be the head coach for the Seahawks, in which he was defensive coordinator there for years. And I thought with Washington, you need someone who's offensive-minded with a rookie quarterback coming in. You didn't know which one from the draft, but damn it, you needed one. And James, that was the wrong move.
And if memory serves me correct, though I don't know much about the NFL, wasn't Eric Bieniemy like next in line before he took the job at UCLA?
Yeah, because he was, what was it? He was already the offensive coordinator with the Commanders.
He was already in the system. Yeah. Like, how do you not go that route?
I think the ownership, Josh Harris and Magic Johnson and all that, they wanted actual, veteran name, but they had Bieniemy. He had offensive success with the Kansas City Chiefs, and you're thinking, okay, if you could bring a little bit of that here, from there to here, do it. They definitely screwed up.
Why does that hire remind me so much of, like we were just saying, James, about Bieniemy with Kansas City coming over? Why am I getting like these vibes of like Lakers hiring Luke Walton because of the 73 win regular season?
It's sort of like yeah, I can see that. It's like, hey, he's not the actual guy that did everything, that schemed everything.
It's like, look at the roster of who was on those teams with the Chiefs, and then look at what the Warriors had in that 73 win season.
Like, he's just the actual. He's not. He didn't come up with the plays. He's just calling it to Pat Mahomes. Andy Reid is the actual guy. And then it felt like with Steve Kerr being out, Luke Walton was just inheriting that team that did great things, except win the whole thing.
Yeah, like Biz Markie said, he's just a friend. John Alcorn further says, I feel kind of bad for telling a friend to draft Jordan Love in fantasy football.
No.
Here's another good stat here, James. John says Niners are now 4-0 against Aaron Rodgers in his career. They have his number.
Yeah, in the playoffs as well, that's a thing. When you can kind of scheme for a quarterback who can air it out, I think you put your safeties in the right position.
And
no matter what team he plays
for. You basically had the game plan against Aaron Rodgers getting back to all those years in Green Bay, as you were alluding to.
Yeah, so even Garrett Wilson, I know he caught a touchdown tonight, but the defense, they did everything to shut down Bryce Hall as well, the running back. So they had nothing going for him. And I think, even Aaron Rodgers was benched at the end of the game or nearing the end of the game. That's when I turned it to something else on Sirius XM.
John also says real quick that they being Washington, I believe, need a young head coach like they did with Mike McDaniel in Miami, because no way they hire Eric Bieniemy, because if they would, they should have tried him by now. And I think that Mike McDaniel has worked very well right now in Miami, for sure.
Yeah, the last time we were on, we were talking about Tua and his beef with Brian Flores. And how he had no one to believe in him. And now Mike McDaniel is that guy. And he got him a lot of money. And Seattle, like I mentioned, Seattle with Washington, not the city and state, but they need to switch head coaches. Literally, Mike McDonald is the offensive guy in Seattle, and Dan Quinn is the defensive guy in Washington.
Precisely.
And it's just Freaky Friday. You gotta switch that.
Great analogy. John also says real quick, James, before we move on here, it's funny because the Niners could have drafted Rodgers, but they drafted Alex Smith out of Helix High School.
Yeah, it's funny how these drafts work. I mean, it happened this year. It happened with Hopkins and Jones in that draft. And
John, dare I remind you draft. John, do I have to remind you that the Bears passed on Mahomes for Mitch Trubisky?
A lot of teams
still on Chicago sports fans, believe it or not.
Yeah, and I love the question and people getting stomped about how did you let Brock Purdy go all the way to the end? It just happened. It's a crapshoot. You don't know.
It's a crapshoot, precisely. Yeah. And I think John would agree that the draft is always a crapshoot regardless. James, going from the NFL Week 1 to the NBA offseason as training camps open up very, very soon, Jamal Murray got paid earlier on Monday a brand new 4-year, $209 million extension to keep Jamal Murray in the Mile High City with the Denver Nuggets, who kind of, in a way, keep the core together that won their championship a couple years ago, but got bounced out by a very, very energetic Minnesota Timberwolves team in round 2 this season. James, Denver all of a sudden, man, has become not a full-blown juggernaut, but certainly they are now in the upper echelon at the top of the food chain in the Western Conference now, between them, Minnesota, and Dallas, maybe Oklahoma City. I do feel like, James, that there's been a power shift in the Western Conference, not in the Pacific Division, but now the Northwest has gotten stronger, but with Denver and Oklahoma City. And even now, in that division too, I believe, with Minnesota, like 3 of the best teams in the Western Conference now in my mind, Denver, Oklahoma City, and Minnesota, all, I believe, in the same division. Then you got kind of that outlier team maybe in Dallas down there. all of a sudden, James, we're not talking about the Lakers and Clippers and the Suns and, like our division. Now it's like the balancing of power in the West is going from the Pacific Division now going to the Northwest and maybe even the Southwest. But James, your thoughts with Jamal Murray getting this $209 million extension to stay with the Nuggets?
Yeah, three things. I'm never surprised when, a team holds on to one of their 1-2 punches, and Murray is that one to joker. And to have both there for a while now is reassuring. You can only hope Murray is healthy every year. You've seen what they did when Murray is healthy. He's winning games for him in the playoffs. He has dramatic game winners. Had that one against the Lakers last year, in which I was very happy about. They already won, one title in 2023 over Miami. So, yeah, it's fun too, because the second thing, the NBA wanted competitive balance, and also they wanted certain players to stay with their teams and not go to. You don't have to go to a big market to get your money, and then to also win. You could stay where you are, where you both have been drafted, right? Murray and Jokic. You could stay there, go through the bad times, and then they've done a great job, the GM and all that, getting key players to work with them. Now getting Russell Westbrook, let's see how that how that messes things up. I don't know, but I think KCP is gone as well, I want to say, but eventually you have to redo your roster and get younger, and those young players have to step up. So that's the thing. Minnesota has the plethora of talent, just like Oklahoma City, and you're hoping Denver hasn't lost as much.
And not just that, James, I don't mean to cut you off, but all three of those teams, man, have great head coaches in place too.
Yeah, that's one thing. And they've been there a while too. Well, not Minnesota's, but he's been there a couple of years, Glenn Taylor. And then Mark Dauganault, I think that's how you say his last
head coach
name.
of Oklahoma City.
He's been there as they've built. And
right.
When they acquired all those draft picks from the Clippers for Paul George, yikes. For Russell Westbrook, too. They've got all those picks. They have all that talent. They could go get whatever they want, or they could go draft whatever they want. And they made a trade this year, or this offseason, sending Josh Giddey out and getting what they needed, maybe from the Bulls with Alex Caruso. Some energy on the defensive
veteran leadership.
Side. That's a great move. And I think last year, wasn't it the top three were the three teams we were talking about?
Yes.
I want to say that's what it was.
I believe so. I believe it was Minnesota 1,
Oklahoma
Denver
City
2, or OKC 2, Denver 3. I think so.
It's a power shift. I'm here for it. And you'll love to see other teams in it. Now, it might not draw at the TV ratings and all that, but I think folks like us wouldn't mind, just because, hey, we want to see these young teams develop. Oklahoma City did this before. When you think about it, since 2008-9, when they were getting all that young talent together, they're doing
First
it
year
again.
In OKC after they went from Seattle.
Yeah, they got Westbrook the first year they went to OKC, and then they got Harden. They traded Harden, but they got better with Ibaka and others, and just rebuilding. It's been a great thing in Oklahoma City, and it's just fun. But getting back to quickly Denver, I like what they've done, but the only thing is I hope they didn't give up too much, trading or letting free agents go. I'm hoping it's not a one-time thing that they win the championship. I hope they get back to the finals. But the West, it gets harder every year, and there's always a new villain. And that's what's fun about the West, maybe more than the East. There's always a new villain in the West. And last year was, Ant and the Timberwolves. And maybe this year, it would be a surprising team out there. Trying to think of who, but
Dallas could shock somebody again. Maybe Houston takes a step. Utah takes a step. Maybe the Suns get back on the horse, perhaps. What about Sacramento?
That's what I was thinking. Sacramento had a down year last year from the year before, where they broke that playoff losing or the losing streak of not going to the playoffs. They had a down year last year, but it looks like they kept the core together. Harrison Barnes, I think, is gone, but
DeMar DeRozan's in
Fox,
town now all of a sudden.
that could bring that veteran leadership that they really need. They could slow the offense down. Definitely with DeMar DeRozan, his mid-range game. You have Sabonis being a great leader, and then you have De'Aaron Fox just running everything. So maybe, yeah, Sacramento can be that team from 2 years ago. But yeah, that's just going to be a fun top of that West. It's going to be fun. And Murray staying there again, it feels like, hey, you don't have to, again, learn, you don't have to go to a big market to earn your money. You can get your extension, what you really deserve. You could just stay and get it here. So I love that about the NBA now compared to back then when you had a player going for a new contract. They
It
would
was
go to
always
the
LA, New York, Golden State when they had their run at one point.
or you would go to maybe one of the worst teams in the league just because they had the cap space. And sometimes you see that, but not as much now um, uh, with the new money going out there. It's really good to see, though.
So again, folks, Jamal Murray getting paid by the Nuggets, a 4-year, $209 million extension. A couple more thoughts from John Alcorn in the NFL. He says that the Bills passed on Xavier Worthy. Thanks a lot for that. John also throws the Cavs under the bus, saying, screw the Cavs franchise, who got a doo-doo head coach who never won in Charlotte. But no, we'll bring him in to Cleveland to lose some more. The Cavs will make me go bald like Mr. Clean, and they are a bum-run organization. I mean,
That
JB Bickerstaff, man, we talked about, JB getting
love
let
him.
go after last season. Like, that was a very just like kind of like, what are you guys doing moment last season? But I think, though, James, we kind of talked a bit, though, there was a little bit of some turmoil with that club last season.
Yeah, Mobley got the extension, I think. Mitchell's on his final years with them, but it felt like it was a mutiny to get rid of Bickerstaff.
Which is just so surprising for a team that was the 4 seed in the postseason last year, I think, or they were the 5. Like, they were middle of the road Eastern Conference. I think they were a divisional winner. Like, and then this comes out like in the middle of the postseason or as the year went on. It was just very weird.
I hated that because they were one of those teams I thought were really building something special. But you hear Garland wasn't performing as well. Mobley's not getting his touches because Mitchell is an ISO ball guy. And, he's out there with the mid-range and three-point shots, and it just deteriorates all the shots for everyone else. And maybe there was a conflict of interest with that. But I was hoping Cleveland would have been one of those teams, just like Minnesota and Denver and Oklahoma City, where they've built from the ground up and made the trade to get Mitchell, a big player. But it looks like it's something's never going to work there. Like you're hoping after the LeBron, couple times there, they can build back up and be really, really great. But they were on their way. But now it's like you look at them and say, well, New York handles you easily. Indiana does as well.
Milwaukee,
Cleveland. Boston destroyed you in the first round. You just don't have it. It's like you're never going to be anything unless you have something like really work out for you. That's what I feel like Cleveland is. They're stuck in the middle. They try stuff, but it doesn't work out.
Yeah, they're definitely stuck in neutral for sure. But again, folks, Jamal Murray, 4-year, $209 million extension from the Denver Nuggets as we near the beginning of training camps in the NBA coming up very soon. James, over in the world of hockey, just a very tragic story that broke last Friday, I believe, if not even a couple weeks ago, but very recently, though, still. And that was the very just untimely, tragic news early about a week or so ago of Columbus Blue Jackets forward Johnny Gaudreau and his brother Matthew, who were sadly, tragically killed in a drunk driving incident riding bicycles the day before their sister's funeral in Olds Man Township, New Jersey. Johnny had played in the NHL for roughly almost a decade with Calgary and had gone to Columbus. And the story broke at roughly like 7 o'clock in the morning, about a week or so ago. And it was a very, stop what you're doing sort of moment. And James, it's been obviously, as you know, man, about when this stuff happens, about how the hockey community reacts. I'm sure you've seen the videos. You've heard the stories of the fans who had left hockey sticks outside of their front porches with the light on, uh, in honor of Johnny and Matt's passing, the fan memorials that have been held at Nationwide Arena and the Scotiabank Saddle Dome, the public memorial that was held in both cities. People just, wearing Goudreau jerseys, whether it was Calgary, whether it was the Blue Jackets. I believe on Monday Night Raw in Calgary, Sami Zayn, one of the wrestlers, came out wearing a Johnny Gaudreau jersey. Sami Zayn being from Canada, obviously being a big hockey fan, wore that jersey in honor of Johnny's passing. And also, James, I'm sure you've also heard, though, too, but the GoFundMe that was started, I believe, by the family of Matt Goudreau has raised, I believe, at last check, like near $700,000 for the family. And also the very heartbreaking announcement that Meredith Goudreau, Johnny's wife, made the announcement that she's pregnant with their third child 9 months in, at the memorial held, I believe, either in Philly today or at the memorial in Calgary. And James, we talked a bit, I think, man, earlier at the start of the show about how we have these wildfires burning out here in our home area of Southern California and San Diego, and about how we were applauding the firefighters. And it, James, made me think about this very unfortunate tragedy. And I right away heard this, and I'm like, why is this like Nick Adenhart all over again? Nick Adenhart, again, Angels pitcher who was killed mere hours after his major league debut in 2009, after pitching a 6-inning gem versus Oakland, was killed by a drunk driver coming home from the game after going out with friends to have some drinks and celebrate Nick being back in the major leagues and his personal strife of Tommy John surgeries and being in AAA Salt Lake for a long time. And James, it made me think about Nick Adenhart, but also, James, reminded me, this is the exact reason. You've seen it, James. This is the reason why I put out my Lyft and Uber referral code during the holidays, Memorial Weekend, Labor Day, Christmas, Thanksgiving, because I don't want my friends to go out there, or anyone to go out there, and enjoy their night, and then all of a sudden become another name we lose to drunk driving. And I have been that way for my entire life. Again, I don't drive, folks, but I have been an advocate, though, that we can put an end to drunk driving. And if that's just, sharing, the Uber codes and Lyft codes where, yeah, it may give me, I might refer somebody and I might get $20 to use for my next ride to work. But it's more about keeping all of us safe. And the nature of the story. It happens before the wedding. It happens, before training camps begin. And I think, though, James, the thing I recall seeing most, though, and you brought this up, though, in a very great way, though, talking about Jamal Murray getting his money in Denver. Zach Werenski, who's one of the team captains of the Columbus Blue Jackets, said, I believe in his eulogy to Johnny Gaudreau, thank you for believing in Columbus when no other player would believe in this market. And that, James, is a market who has not been to the Cup final. They've had their spurts of great seasons. They knocked out Tampa Bay in a 4-game sweep, I believe, when Tampa Bay had won the President's Trophy with the best overall record in the regular season. But it's a market, though, James, a lot like the Padres for a long time, overlooked by players like, yeah, that's cool and all, but I want to go and get my money, with the LA Dodgers and the Yankees, or in hockey's case, I want to go get paid in Tampa Bay or get paid in Edmonton or get paid by the Rangers. And when I read that, I'm like, that is something that I believe should be Johnny Gaudreau's lasting legacy. And I think, James, that we both watch Lee Hacksaw Hamilton every Monday and Thursday. And the emotion pouring out of him, though, talking about his passing, and especially about, every time you saw Johnny Gaudreau, man, he was smiling. That smile never came off his face. Win, lose, OT loss, shootout loss, or Game 7 loss. That man was always smiling, man, and that could just light up a room. But, James, your overall thoughts, I guess, and just your general reaction to Johnny Gaudreau and his brother Matthew being tragically killed last week by a drunk driver in New Jersey. But sadly, though, James, like I said, the day before his sister's wedding.
Yeah, it's tragic as hell. And I remember that episode of the uh, Hacksaw Show. And, I wasn't watching it, but I was listening to it. I could literally hear Hamilton's voice kind of change.
Even today, even on Monday, it did too.
Yeah, I didn't hear that, but I'll hear it tomorrow. Yeah, all I can remember about him is like, yeah, he's one of the guys or the players if you're a hockey fan. Not a big one, but like me, where it's like, oh yeah, you know certain names like Johnny Hockey, like other players out there, but I knew of him and the stories I've heard where he smiled a lot, he had time for everyone, great teammate, a great player, and the fact that he quote took that hometown discount or it didn't go to a bigger market, you have to give him that, for anybody to do that is awesome. But the stories I'll hear tonight or tomorrow when I watch the service. I'll listen to it and watch it, and I'll hear more about it. But I wish I watched him a little more. I wish I wish I knew more about him, but I'll know more about him, unfortunately, from all the tributes. And you're mentioning the Aiden Hart story. I didn't even know about it till the next morning when ESPN had it all over the place, and the newspapers and all that. And right away the team rallied around it. They did great things, and it was a tribute all year long for him and all that. It'll bring people together, and I know that this tragedy will bring people together like it did today at the funeral. But I just wish I knew more. I wish I took time to watch more of his games or listen to one of his interviews or whatever the case was. But I'm going to hear more about the tributes, and I'll get more into it, and I'll realize, maybe someone as big as him with the personality losing him is going to be a big loss for the NHL. The one disheartening thing I remember from the coverage is that I don't think ESPN had any coverage of it on that Friday night. I think or whenever it was, but the Angels, I think, even had a moment of silence before the game on that Friday against the Mariners. So they knew because the Ducks are across the street there at the pond, and I'm just hoping to know more about them as we go along. But it's just a horrible tragedy, and again, like you mentioned with the drug driving, it's just something that it'll never go away, but you hope it does one day. Just with people's their mindsets isn't right, but you just hope you have the right people around them to make the better decisions for them. To not make that drive home, to either sober up and wait instead of trying to be a big man or whatever and thinking like, oh, I got away with it once, but I'll be fine. 1 or 2 drinks won't hurt. It won't hurt my concentration and all that. And it's just, again, it's a horrible tragedy for the hockey world and for Johnny Hockey to have his own nickname like that. It's ridiculous, and I'm again, I'm gonna learn more about him today or tonight or tomorrow morning watching everything.
Yeah, James, just, very unfortunate to have this news come out. And again, we're literally 2 days away from training camp opening and 3 days away from the start of the preseason tournaments for the rookies and prospects coming up on Friday. And now we have this cloud hanging over this season all of a sudden with, again, the very tragic passing of Johnny Gaudreau and his brother Matthew Gaudreau as well. And again, sending all of our best to the Calgary Flames, the Columbus Blue Jackets, and obviously the Gaudreau family with this just devastating time and a devastating loss for everyone involved in the community. I can quickly say as well that hours after the incident was announced, James, that a bunch of friends of mine up in Orange County went right to Honda Center, and they laid 13 roses on the statue of Wild Wing in front of the Honda Center in Anaheim. They brought balloons, they left candy behind, and then that memorial grew and grew and grew, with the Ducks putting their own batch of flowers out on the statue. And I think the hockey world all had some sort of tribute. And again, very moving, uplifting memorials right now too at Scotiabank Saddledome, where fans have literally taken sidewalk chalk and have written messages in the parking lot around the arena in honor of Johnny's passing. And same goes as well in Columbus at Nationwide Arena. And again, just wishing all of the parties involved all the best going forward. And hopefully that there'll be a league-wide moment of silence before the first games are played in early October. And I would hope, though, that every team does it at their home opener in honor of Johnny and Matthew Gaudreau's passing. With that, James, over quickly, man, to the WNBA. The rookies have, in fact, made an impact, James. Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever have officially, man, wiped out the longest WNBA postseason drought by making the postseason after a very great and hot second half of the season. While sadly, James, Angel Reese is done for the year with a wrist injury, but did, though, man, set numerous records along the way. From rebounds to double doubles of like a 20-game stretch, James, of consecutive double doubles and 20 games plus. And of course, though, James, Caitlin Clark again helping out, sell out arenas, you name it, man. James, what probably among these two rookies, man, can we say that they have been nothing short though of spectacular? Sadly, man, we know that Cameron Brink's been out for the year though with that ripped ACL. But James, I cannot be more enthused and more proud of how this rookie class has really, man, elevated this league to a whole new level. And now, man, we will see postseason basketball involving Indiana and also involving Caitlin Clark and involving the Fever franchise, I believe, for the first time since 2016, I believe, if not longer.
Yeah, I didn't know the drought, but it always seemed like that. And I remember when they always used to be in it, but that was a while back. But yeah, with Cameron Brink, you kind of knew the Sparks didn't have the talent like Chicago and Indiana had. They're building it, so to speak. But you kind of knew they wouldn't make the playoffs this year, and then Brink gets hurt very early, and that's really hurt the team.
5 games in, I think, 6 games in.
That's what it felt like, and she was doing great things on and off the court.
Sadly,
as well.
James, that was a huge blow, not just to the Sparks, but also the 3-on-3 team in Paris, because Brink was going to be one of their go-to players on that team.
Wow!
So her teammate Dearica Hamby ended up taking over for her in Paris,
and that team would have been defensively better than it was. How could it have got any better? Yeah. I'm just I'm amazed just at what the 3 women have done with the advertisements, with the money, with the eyes watching now and the crowds, they're drawing. It's great to see. Quickly with Angel Reese, I do feel bad for her in the sky, but part of me kind of doesn't in a way, but it was just, being on the side of Clark for everything. And I think I'm not the only one too, where, we kept hearing about all the hard fouls against Clark and the Fever when they played the Sky, and everybody wanted revenge for that. That was on Clark's, team or whatever. And this happened to Angel Reese, but she was having a great rookie year. It was that rookie of the year. I still wouldn't know who to pick. I would pick Clark just because of all the records, but it would feel like a co-rookie of the year. You know how they? I think it was in '94. There was co-rookie of the years. I want to say it was Grant Hill and Jason Kidd. I would have in the NBA. I would have did that with the WNBA. Have Clark and Reese, just make everybody happy. But I think this year be Clark. With Reese, tough player, tough defender, and she was putting up numbers. But speaking of putting up numbers with Clark, at the beginning of the year, it was a filling out process with the way the team wanted to
Trying to
play.
gel the chemistry, the very loaded schedule of playing, those gauntlet games with the Liberty and Sunner full court pressing her with Dejanay Carrington. They had to play Vegas and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Once you get into your conference, maybe the East is a little bit easier, but it took a while to gel. But I love how Caitlin Clark facilitates, and she's not just a scorer or shooter. She literally knows she's going to get double teamed or the help's going to come. She's going to make a great pass to get, Elijah Boston, the scorer, the basket, or somebody else for a three, or somebody else for a quick layup around the defender. I just love players like that, like Steve Nash and Magic Johnson and Jason Kidd. Even Curry was like that. So Curry and her, have something common where they could facilitate, but they can shoot the lights out from the logos. And I just love seeing that whenever I see Caitlin Clark. And, I guess, again, like it took time to get everything gelled and ready together, but they're doing well together. And you hoped. I mean, it was bad, ugly, like early, like you mentioned, with the record and the schedule gauntlet. But, they got better as it seems like everybody else couldn't stop it as much. So I love the way Clark just facilitates. If she doesn't have an open shot, she'll be able to get someone else a shot just by driving and kicking out or interior passing. It's just such a refreshment from, the style ball now. It's great to see, and I just love Caitlin Clark and the way she plays. And I don't think anybody had them in the playoffs after a couple of weeks into the WNBA season. They'll probably be, first out, but hopefully they can make a little surprise run here and go hot going into the postseason. That would be a lot of fun. The crowds that she's garnered and the Fever have had all year long.
All the teams who've had to move those games from the smaller venues to the big ones too.
No university crowds, actual arena crowds. I love hearing about those stories because when you have playoff games being played at a university, like I saw it with Washington, I saw it with the Sparks at the Galen Center or the Pyramid. It just reminds me of like when the NBA was a mom and pop sport. And in the 60s and 70s and early 80s, playoff games are still being played at universities. And it just drove me crazy when I heard that.
Like all those times the Lakers played at UNLV?
Oh, yeah. In that one significance in 92 because of the riots. But the Mavericks, I think the rodeo was in town or something at the Reunion Arena. They had to play one game against the Sonics, a first round game at SMU, and it's this little ass gym. I couldn't believe you had I don't know if Sam Perkins was there yet, but you had Mark Aguirre and Orlando Blackman. You had who the Sonics had and Fred Brown, whomever. Jack Sigma, all these players playing in a gym. And then you had the Sonics being at the University of Washington in Seattle, getting moved not only from the Kingdom, but from the Key Arena or Seattle Coliseum, and having to play at the University of Washington. You have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Jamal Wilkes, Magic playing against like Dennis Johnson and the Sonics for a playoff game. And it was a Western Conference championship game. One of those series. And it was just ridiculous to hear. So I never want to see that with the WNBA ever again. They made strides with the, no longer having the, what do you call it? The
flights.
And going to the charter flights, I think it is.
Yes.
No longer that, higher salaries, higher ticket prices, higher everything. And I just hope, they get to a point you never have to have Washington, the Mystics playing at I think it was George Washington University or something last year.
And I believe the Dream and Atlanta are playing at Georgia Tech's arena. I want to say, if not a different university. And I believe same with the Dallas Wings that are playing at UTA. I believe.
I remember that about the Wings. And you mentioned really quick about the Dream playing at Georgia Tech. I remember when the Hawks were getting Phillips Arena, they would have big games at the Georgia Dome, but the rest of them were at Georgia Tech. And it was just the weirdest thing to see the Hawks do that twice in their history, where, again, the NBA was mom and pop. Atlanta just got the Hawks from St. Louis, and they're, Will Chamberlain, Jerry West, all these great players from back in the day were playing at Georgia Tech against the Hawks, and they did it 30 years later. And now you still have the WNBA playing at Georgia Tech. It's just crazy. But again, you just hope for progression, equality, and Clark Reese and Brink with her endorsements off the court as well, with the fashion, with the makeup, all that. You just hope the progression has been, full blasted toward, limits they've never seen before. That's what you hope. Meanwhile, you used to have Vegas and the Liberty bound to meet up again, probably in the finals. So it's
maybe just Connecticut, if they can somewhat keep this hot streak going too. I think those are your three potential picks or locks maybe for the final, is one of those three teams who win it all.
Connecticut, I remember from last year, they played everyone so tough. Like perimeter defenders that won't let you get in the key.
It's crazy how good that their defense has been, man. Even this season. I mean, we saw that, early in the year when Carrington would go 94 feet and just press and squeeze Clark, it's turnover city left and right. What flavor do you want?
I love that old school mentality, and I guess it's drawn up by their coach and their mentality where it's like, hey, if you drafted that player, if you got that player from another team, they could fit with your team. And they've all fit in very well. So you love that resistance going against like the top tier teams. I think that's going to be cool to see, especially in the Eastern Conference.
And I think maybe my fourth would be Minnesota. They've come on late here recently too. Nafisa Collier, absolute stud. And I mean, they got a really good ball club up there too. And they've been a very much a measuring stick for the last, several years, even though they've not won a title since 2017. But still, that is a formidable foe too. So I'd go New York, Vegas, Connecticut, and Minnesota's my top four right now at this rate for the WNBA Finals. But again, Caitlin Clark and the Fever in the postseason. Wishing all the best to Angel Reese, who again is done for the season with a wrist injury suffered for the Chicago Sky. All right, James, time to go off the board on this now Tuesday, early Tuesday morning, my friend. What do you got for us? One topic that was not discussed on tonight's program. What do you got?
Okay. How many MLB managers will get fired after the season? I know there's been already Service fired,
dismissed, and then
Grifol has been fired as well. I'm looking at Cincinnati with David Bell. Even though he got extended, just like Marmol, they could both be fired in my opinion. Bud Black, I feel like they're just going to keep him around and nothing's going to change really. Miami eventually skipped Schumacher. I think he's in his final year of his deal. There's Davey Martinez with Washington, but they extended him, and it feels like they're just trying to just progress, I guess. AJ Hinch, if they don't make the playoffs, maybe with Detroit. I always hear about that. John Schneider with the Blue Jays, of course. You always hear about that. I think Alex Cora is in his final year with the Red Sox, I want to say.
I think he got extended too, I want to say.
Oh, yeah, he did. So Mark Kotsay with Oakland. Bochy might not come back. Dan Wilson's the intern. And then you have Ron Washington with the Angels. But he has one more year left on his deal. I would just think out of all those guys that I mentioned, who for sure will be fired? I think Snyder's one in Toronto, despite
I think Schneider, James, as we've talked a lot about the Blue Jays on this program, is that their expectations, great lineup, great pitching staff, but they just can't get over the hump, and they seem to find ways to beat themselves every game, like today or on Monday against the Mets. Bases loaded, bottom of the first, and can't get a run in. How do you not do that? I mean, with that lineup, And I think, though, them dealing away Kevin Biggio kind of began to sound the alarm for me that John Schneider's in trouble. So I would probably go Schneider as my number one guy. I mean, Mark Kotsay and the A's have been kind of hot here in the second half, but again, they're moving to a new market. I think
Right.
you're going to want a brand new chapter for just the Athletics. There's no city branding with that ball club for 3 years at Sutter Health Park. I think Kotsay's probably out the door because I think you want to have like that new chapter for that, that organization. I think Dan Wilson might get a 1-year shot, and then maybe they have someone like lying in wait as like that de facto associate manager up in Seattle. I mean, if they can somehow get that team healthy and get that team back in the right direction. James, this one might be crazy. But I think, though, after the comments I heard on the network today on Monday, now into Tuesday, Rocco Baldelli, if the Twins don't make the postseason, after he said that his team played unprofessional baseball against the Royals in a sweep this past weekend. That's my wild card.
I didn't hear that. And then, I know with the postseason they had last year or the first series or whatever it was, they had the heroics from Royce Lewis, but it was like, man, you don't expect them to do much after. I mean, that's the way I thought.
Especially if they play the Yankees.
That too. As I mentioned, I thought they were going to be divisional winners again. But, they still could be. They just have to make a run. But, at least they're still in the wild card. And, yeah, if they lose it to Boston, Seattle, or Detroit. If you lose it to Detroit, then I think... If you lose
it to a divisional rival, you're done.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. Rocco Baldelli, he's a good guy. He's a good manager. He fights for his teammates. But I love that quote because sometimes you really have to say
Tell it how it is.
Yeah, and the young players, they might not respond to that well, and you might have a mutiny situation like
Shatter their confidence.
You did in Seattle.
Veterans may begin to what does this guy know, for heaven's sakes?
Yeah, so it could be... That could happen, but I think when you mentioned if Detroit gets it over them, that would really be painful. I haven't heard that one, but maybe like a weekend happened like it did against Kansas City. Maybe that is deserving of it, but maybe it's not him. Maybe it's the players. Their confidence is low, and it takes the manager's words or actions, throwing a couple chairs, whatever the case may be, to get them going. So maybe he has something in mind. Well, when you lose to the Angels, though, that's pretty bad. Now, they do have 2 more games against them, Tuesday and Wednesday, and you're hoping that you don't lose again. The Angels is that get-right team. And, when you play them, you hopefully get right and get on a streak. So I think that's the only thing going for the Twins right now is like, hey, we're playing the right team. We just got to beat them.
All right, James, I got one more for you. And it's the same one every year. Dave Roberts with the Dodgers.
No. What does he have, 2 more years left?
I don't know, but you don't think... I don't know, but I think, though, James, you don't think, though, that if the Dodgers don't win it all for the first time in a regular season, don't give me this 2020 bull crap, first time since '88, with all that payroll spent, you're not telling me he's going to get canned because of what they've done to basically buy a ring eventually in sometime soon? Or does that fall more on the front office, Brandon Gomes and Andrew Friedman?
Because of all the pitcher injuries that we've heard of, I don't want to put that on Roberts. And then remember the last couple of years, it wasn't Roberts being blamed for the pitching changes in the postseason. It was analytics, right? So the players love Roberts. So I think you keep him around no matter what, unless you have another first-round exit. Then you would have to get rid of him. Maybe, if you don't make the playoffs, you get rid of, or the World Series, you get rid of him. But I just don't see that. I really don't. But and then who would you have managing? Like, who would you go after? Just, I don't even
I
know, a
couldn't
TV
tell you, but I
personality.
yeah, I mean, I don't know who I would hire, but I just think though that it doesn't matter, James, if the Dodgers win a game or lose. Like, there's that small pocket of fans, as we again, with Saw and Riley that we always hear. There's always that pocket of fans who are like, we hate Dave Roberts, get him
Yeah.
out of here. What have we done? Minus 2020, we've done nothing. But I think though, James, too, that, and this has been something though that's been talked about too a little bit. When's the last time the Los Angeles Dodgers played meaningful games in September for a division championship? Because, James, you know very well, I've known very well my whole life. 9 times out of 10, that game, that GB standing for the next closest team is like 10, 15,
Yeah.
20, 30 games back. And the Dodgers kind of go into cruise control, and that usually has been their kryptonite. Maybe this year is that chance for them because, they're only up by 6 games or 6.5 games on San Diego and Arizona. Like, they're actually getting, pressured to actually win the division title, in that last week of the season. But I still, James, think, though, if the Dodgers don't win in the postseason, I don't see how they keep Dave Roberts. I really don't.
And that'd be, you think about what he's done there with all the divisional titles won in a row, but you think about the postseason failures other from one half season or one little season. But
I mean, can we just, in a way, James, call the 20 whatever Dodgers to now the new modern day 90s era Atlanta Braves?
oh yeah, definitely. No, when they kept losing to, yeah, since 21, yeah, definitely. That's certainly true. Because they should have won like 3 or 4 by now. And you felt like that with the Braves, but they kept running into the Yankees, or the Mets would get lucky one year, or the Marlins one year. But yeah, I like that. I hope it keeps going, and I like that comparison. Just because you have the abundance of riches there, and if you don't win it with Shohei doing what he's doing this year, blah 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 blah. When are you ever going to win with Roberts? And I think the fans too, like you mentioned, they're going to be all over the team if they don't win. The pressure will be on the ownership and the front office to make a move, but they're just stuck with like, hey, we'll get in, we'll win. I like what you mentioned though with the division not being won right away. That'll keep them going and hungry. It's just that their pitching core has been decimated. They do get I haven't seen him so long, but Yamamoto.
Yeah, Yamamoto.
I haven't heard from him in years. It feels like, um, but yeah, with Yamamoto, at least you'll have that back. But man, if he struggles in the postseason and with his contract,
Let alone he gets hurt again before the postseason gets reached.
that is what I'm worried about. And then when you have Tyler Glasnow as well, who's been out for a while, and that's right before the postseason here, and something could flare up again for those two, you lose your horses. That could really, put him back, because Bobby Miller against the Angels was awful. You can't trust. You could trust him last year. You can't trust him this year. And I just think, again, you don't get rid of Roberts just because of the injuries you've had. I think that's the excuse, and you try it for one more year. And then you have Shohei pitching as well as hitting. So I'd give it another year if I was the Dodgers and keeping Roberts around. But you just have to see him full strength. But man, there's like no excuses though. It feels like that's what the
I still think there's no excuse. Like, there's a no excuse mentality. Like, yeah, we've been crushed by injuries, but what team hasn't been crushed by injuries?
True.
Like, the Dodgers, I think, are running out of excuses as to why to not fire Dave Roberts. I know that injuries are out of your control, but still, like, at the end of the day, I think something needs to give. And I think if it's another round one exit and it's because of them losing to San Diego or Arizona or Atlanta or whoever they get, that's just, it's again, that it's beating a dead horse that the Dodger fan base has seen in 2023 against Arizona. 2022 with San Diego, and then 2021, losing to Atlanta. Like, they've seen this movie over and over and over again. Like, when do you get tired of the ending always being, you always faltering flat on your face in the DS, the CS, or in the World Series?
Would you imagine a scenario where they get the bye, but they play in the divisional round against the New York Mets, and the Mets somehow win? Could you imagine? Now maybe Roberts would be gone. Roberts, the whole city would be on fire.
Yeah, I think in that situation, yeah. I mean, if the 6th seed somehow knocks out Milwaukee, which I think is where the standings are at, I think it's Mets, Brewers right now, Padres, D-backs right now. If the 6th seed knocks you out, then all bets are off on getting Roberts out of there, I think. Yeah. I really do.
Yeah, I'm just coming up with scenarios like,
and especially if it's in the same fashion as last postseason where it was a 3-game sweep.
No.
Yikes.
I mean, last 2 years. I mean, it's been fun. It's been fun. I'm just hoping for more of the same, but you gotta believe though, one of these years it's just bound to happen. It's gotta be soon. I think that's what everybody's saying carefully, but they know like the fashion that they lose is going to determine his status. That's basically what it is.
Yeah, if it's a 3-game sweep, I think he's given the eject button like after the game's over, like an hour after the game. He gives his press conference and he gets his walking papers. Now, if they win a series, maybe not. But I think though, James, I mean, we know how LA operates. If you're not winning the championship, no one gives a what.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, even after losing the World Series too. But I think even then, I think he'd be safe if he lost in the World Series against maybe New York. So. Yeah.
Yeah. But then again, I mean, we don't really know. I mean, we'll see what happens. But definitely, I think, though, John Schneider, number 1 for me to be fired. David Bell's probably 2, 1B, I think, with that young core of talent. But I do think Rocco Baldelli should be a wild card, I think. Because I think if they gag this away in that fashion, especially again to the Tigers maybe, or Boston, or if Seattle surges forward here pretty soon, I don't know. Do you have one more name?
Let me just mention this.
Yes.
The Twins shredded some payroll, and they were not active at the deadline. So that tells me they were just doing whatever with this team this year. They were rolling with what they had, basically. So that tells me the front office doesn't really... not that they cared, but with the TV contract as well with Bally's, where it's just
that was one thing. And then I think the Pollard's comments, James, we talked about, I think, on Coast to Coast at night when we first debuted the show in this format, is we talked about how Snell was unsigned and Chapman was unsigned, as was JD Martinez and someone else. And in the slide we had on screen, Jim Pollard, I believe, who's one of the owners, I believe, or team GM, or he's one of the higher ups of the organization, said, we're not going to spend $60 million just to spend $60 million. And a lot of that, James, was because of the TV deal with Bally Sports North.
Yeah, so I'm kind of leaning if they lose, the playoff spot, it's just like, hey, probably wasn't even going to be there anyway, depending on, what your GM was kind of, handcuffed, what not to do or what he could do and what he couldn't do. I think you look at that and you go, if they lose it, it doesn't matter. I think he's garnered enough respect to keep the job no matter what. I hope that's the case for Rocco Baldelli.
I agree. With that, James, I'll go off the board here and stay within women's sports. And as you probably, James, heard on Sunday, but U.S. women's national team legend and San Diego Wave legend, for that matter, Alex Morgan, shockingly on Thursday in a Instagram video shared to her profile, announced her intentions to call it a career at age 35 and played her final match at Snapdragon Stadium on Sunday before a crowd of over 26,000 people who braved the triple-digit heat to give AM13 one final proper send-off. Of course, James, Alex, being from Diamond Bar, California, went to Cal Berkeley, has been a standout on the national team for so long. And really, James, as I wrote in my kind of tribute farewell to Alex on the gram, really, James has helped elevate women's sports, has really helped push forward with women's soccer. As we know, James, with that very long 6, 8, 10-year long battle for the women's national team, fighting for equal pay amongst them and the men's soccer and the men's national team, fair, all that sort of stuff that we've been talking about, James. And then, of course, making the other announcement that her and her husband are now expecting their second child as well. And James, it really sucked, to hear that though from someone who I've kind of grown up watching play. James, you and I grew up though in that time where we had the '99 team that won it all
Mhm.
here with Julie Foudy and Mia Hamm, Shannon McMillan, and Joy Fawcett, and how that team sparked like the first major women's pro league in the States. I recall when the San Diego Spirit played at USD back when I was a kid in the early 2000s, and all their games were on Channel 4 here, and they had like 4 or 5 national team stars on that team, including Foudy and McMillan and Shannon Box, who was battling lupus at that time, playing professional soccer still. And they had a great run, but it was only a 3-year league, and they tried so many times, James, to start other leagues, though. Then the WPS began in 2013, and Alex's team won the title that season. Then it led into the NWSL. And then, of course, as well, though, James, she's won, 2 World Cups. She's an Olympic gold medalist, and now calling it quits, though. And in James, a thing I read, I believe, on Front Office Sports on Monday said that this was the first time that a women's sporting event of this type, or any type, was simulcasted on every ESPN platform and on other national outlets. And it reminded me a lot, James, of April of 2016 when we all, in a way, watched Kobe drop 60 in his last ever game against the Jazz, and we watched the Warriors beat Memphis to win their 73rd regular season game, where it had every channel basically covering or showing the telecast on the stations. And then, of course, Alex walked out with her daughter Charlie before the game. I believe they said she had 90 family members come to the game. Family and friends showed up pre-match for a ceremony. Alex got on the mic post-match. There was a very great, heartfelt video put up by the Wave of all the players thanking Alex. And mainly, though, James, like I said, though, Alex Morgan being a torchbearer to elevate women's soccer and women's sports. I think her media company called Together has been really just pumping out more women's sports content, and their company has made the famous shirt that reads "Everyone watches women's sports." It's been seen at the U.S. Open, at the Olympics, at WNBA games, NWSL games, and not just that though, James. The Wave players walking in wearing the San Diego Goat shirts, but it had Alex's number 13 as the I and E in San Diego. Alex, funnily enough, got subbed out in the 13th minute after they scored to tie the match initially in the 13th minute. Like how, like proper is that? Like how that was scripted. But more importantly as well, though, James, Joe Musgrove and her have had a very cool friendship since the Wave debuted here in 2022. Alex and Abby Dahlkemper, who just got dealt back home to Bay FC in San Jose, where she's from. They came and threw out a first pitch at a Padres game to kind of, say, hey, this new team is here. And I was actually at that game, which is really cool. But ever since, like, Joe and her have hit it off. After the Padres knocked out the Dodgers, I was at that playoff game working media when they played Chicago at Snapdragon, and they had Josh Hader and Steven Wilson, and Joe Musgrove came out, and the whole stadium erupted when they were shown on the Jumbotron, because it was like the day after they knocked out the Dodgers in the NLDS that they showed up. And it's been cool, though, James, to kind of see that all these teams do that cross promotion. And Joe and Dylan Cease came out after their game on Sunday. They were in a suite, and they came out and said, would not have missed this for the world. And James, I think Landon Donovan, the interim head coach, said it right, though. And this is one American soccer great talking about another American soccer great. And Landon ended his remarks by saying, there will never be someone like Alex Morgan ever again in women's pro soccer, in his opinion. But James, one more sidebar story is, I wrote this out there, but 2 years ago when the Wave came here, I was a third-party writer, like an independent blogger, basically, who began covering the club at their home games when they were at USD, and then they went to Snapdragon Stadium. And the first home game against the New York, New Jersey Gotham, Alex had not one, not two, not three. She scored all 4 goals in the match. And the post-game press conference was down on the field with her and Callan Sheridan. And I'm standing there, like, in my head. Now, James, you know well about, media guidelines. Can't seek photos with them. Can't seek autographs with them. But I'm, like, literally, like, internally, I'm just, like, shaking. Like, I'm really about to, like, maybe ask a question to Alex Morgan. And I was nervous as hell, man. Like, I wrote, like, being in the presence alone of someone with that resume. But not just that, James, like I also said, though, it was about the way, though, that Alex Morgan, Abby Dahlkemper, and that franchise came here and got this city behind them. And they represented our city, James, like I said, with class, humility, and nothing but grace. And Alex answered every question that we would ask her, good, bad, ugly, or indifferent. And she would kind of skirt the boundary so she would not get fined by the league front office. We'd ask about the officiating. But, James, I just think, though, that Alex Morgan has become now a face of San Diego sports. And I actually saw like a question about that, and it was like, honest answer. And I'm like, I think you have to. She comes to a expansion franchise, brand new team, and leads that team to the postseason. Never happened in league history where a expansion team made the postseason ever in league history. Wins the Golden Boot that year with, I think, 15 goals in 17 games played. Then last season, they win the league regular season championship. Then this year, before they went into the tailspin, won the Challenge Cup over the champs in New York, New Jersey. Like, that's a pretty good trophy case through 2 years of the club being around. But then when she was asked about what her plans were, she said, I'm not going to be coaching, and that she's going to invest more in women's sports, which I think is great. I wonder now if she becomes like an investor in the team in San Diego, which I'm sure she will. I think this is now her home. I think she loves the city. I think her husband does and whatnot. And I do think, James, that becomes the first retired number in franchise history for the Wave. But, James, maybe how will you remember Alex Morgan's career both on the field, but also more importantly, James, being an advocate for women's sports and women's soccer off of it, though, as well, during her entire illustrious career?
Yeah, she was big in women's sports, obviously, and then the fact she came here to play was big, and big crowds at Snapdragon Stadium. That's all you saw. The whole community loved her, so it was great to see that. That's how I remember her, not only winning the gold medals, but just being a face for women's sports all over America. I did mention, because I did want to mention this and ask you, because she said, I did everything I wanted to do and more with the decision. I'm at peace with it. I'm ready to start a family and hang up the boots and allow the next generation to flourish and relish in the spotlight. It's a good feeling. Now, how you mentioned she's pregnant with the second kid, and she's 35, right? So it must be different when a woman retires from sports than a man, not only because of, being pregnant. We saw that with Serena Williams being pregnant and winning tennis matches, I think a couple of years ago.
Parker, her rookie season, or year 2 in the league.
Oh, that's wow. I didn't even know that. But it must be different for a woman to come back. And then I've always wondered, and I think I forget to ask you, when the recovery time, do you miss out a whole year after having a baby, or it just depends what sport it is? For someone for soccer, what is it, like a 4-month schedule? I can't remember. And then you have international rules or on international games. I always wondered how that is, having a pregnancy, and then how many, if you miss a whole season or miss a FIFA event or something like that. But I always wondered, when Morgan had her first child, how much time did she miss, and how hard was it for her to come back and play after having a baby?
Yeah, I don't remember the exact timeline. I do recall, though, James, when I interviewed Candace Parker 10 years ago, that was one of my questions was, what was that process like coming back? And I even think in her ESPN Plus film documentary, I think she said she missed 53 days, I think, from the time she had Layla, her first child, till the day she came back. So I think she may have missed like a month and a couple of weeks, I want to say. But then again, that's a basketball player doing that.
Yeah,
So
I know
it might
it's different.
fluctuate between what sport you play.
Right, that's what I just figured out right now. And I remember she Alex Morgan, she had that teacup celebration. I totally forgot all about that.
And that was on her birthday, too, that they did that she had scored and did that celebration, too, in London.
And I just I just saw Morgan. The first daughter was Charlie, and born in 2020. So I don't know if it's before all that ended or after, but probably after, I guess. But I'm guessing they didn't play that year, so maybe we would never
No, I do
know.
not believe they operated during the COVID year. I think they might have, but I don't recall if they did actually. They may have though, but I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I always wondered though about that because with men, it's like, okay, back in the day, you didn't, especially with baseball, you didn't get like a chance to, you didn't go on that leave, paternity leave, and go be with your spouse. It was right away. You'll get a telegram or a phone call. Remember that thing with David Murphy with the Mets? How at first they didn't let him go for the pregnancy. I think they're on the road, and the league stepped in, or the Players Association stepped in, and now you get time off and do that.
Yeah,
so,
you get time off now for paternity leave and for bereavement, I believe now. Yes,
mental not illness, but
mental health. Yeah,
mental health. Yeah. That's I've seen that now. I think a couple of players this year had to leave in MLB. They were on that list of missing time because of that. But yeah, I always wondered that with the women's career compared to men, because you're actually, having a baby in you and out of you. You just have to you have to time it a certain way, or adoption, whatever. You have to time it a certain way. But credit to Alex Morgan and all the things she did, playing that long and playing internationally and here in America. It's a great story and a great pillar. I think she's right up there with Rapinoe and Wambach.
Yeah, Abby Wambach.
And
certainly Mia Hamm. She's in the top 5 in scoring all time in program history, believe it or not.
Bowdy. Other from that, it's like, I think it's just those 5 to me. Commercially, it's those 5.
So again, wishing Alex Morgan and the family all the best, and hopefully that whatever her next chapter will be, it's going to be a good one for sure. All right, James, first show on the new time slot. We're now all the way past 1 o'clock in the morning here on the left coast.
Oh, God.
If you can believe that, my friend. But James, final thoughts for the first program in our new time slot, and above all else, man, on our new day on Monday. Now
like Vin Scully said, I've said enough for a lifetime. Enough for 2 hours. I had a lot to say. I mean, just because of what I watched this weekend what I've watched this week, and I had no platform. I wasn't going to talk to myself at work. That would have been weird. So all these opinions I've had of the NFL games, I didn't even go through the college games. I mean, let's let that be the final thought, because I had a great college week. USC blew out Utah State. The lights were out most of the second half, or they were just trying to play with what they had. And it was like the old school Coliseum. Have you ever seen any Rams highlights for night games where it looks like a movie set? But they played through that. They shut out Utah State. I think it was 48-0, and USC's 2-0. And They get the bye week, but then they play
But now
Michigan,
here comes the big boys.
Michigan and Wisconsin, and then you get to the painful, why you make that move. You're seeing why you're getting thrown to the wolves. Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois. I
On a
forget,
blocked field goal, it felt like App State beating Michigan all those years ago.
and that led me to that where I was so happy when that happened.
Mountaineers have beat the Michigan Wolverines.
I love that one in 07, and this one is just below that. And I remember being out, in the heat, just playing basketball, working out, whatever. And I saw that on Instagram. I'm like, there's no way that could happen. And it happened. I was like, hell yeah, because I hate Notre Dame. And then earlier that morning, you had Texas killing Michigan at Michigan. Michigan lost a lot, when it comes to upperclassmen. A lot of them went to the draft, and then you're just stuck with who you brought in and who you've had. They're not ready. And Texas looks like a beast. They only have, not only do they have one quarterback, but they have one in the waiting. So that's really cool for them, even though I hate Texas because of 06. But and I was so I was very happy for them for Notre Dame losing. They're in that category of like USC, Notre Dame, Miami, where they look good at first, and then they just lose, throughout the season, or when they're not really good, they lose. And that brings me to Nebraska being 2-0 out of the gate, and they haven't
Cal's
been good in a
2-0.
long. Yeah, and they went to Auburn to beat, or the Cal Bears went to Auburn to beat them. So that's a great thing to see. And again, everybody's 2-0 if you count the old Pac-12 teams. Just like last year, everybody is undefeated after 2 weeks, just like the last year of the Pac-12 last year. And I'm thinking to myself, damn, I wish it was still together. It pisses me off every day that they're not all together. Still seeing, Arizona schools in the Big 12 with, Utah and all that. It's weird to me. But to see Coach Prime and Colorado lose in the fashion they did to Nebraska, that was cool. The Cornhusker Stadium was full finally, and I haven't seen that in
Long
years.
time.
It's been years since they've been relevant. So, it's a great start for them. Eventually, they'll play that Big Ten schedule. And then I was really disappointed locally, of course, with San Diego State. I watched that game back and forth with USC, and it's like, okay, you bring in the new offensive system with the new coach. I forget the dude's name.
Sean Lewis,
thank you. And he has all these ideas from Colorado he brought, where they're going to air the ball out more, and it's going to be a fun offense. And it's the same old crap. They played Oregon State on Saturday. Their running back ran right through the Aztec defense. They got the air game going, did the Beavers. They looked really good. San Diego State, though, it looked like SOS, the same old stuff. From
your acronym.
The last few years. And, I hope they get better, but they actually played a worthy opponent. It wasn't Texas A&M Commerce. This was Oregon State.
And this week it's Cal.
Yeah, and
Berkeley.
Just like the old days when they played the non-conference, kind of. I can't wait to see that and see how Cal has gone the way they have. Go see Cal if you're in Berkeley. That would be fun.
Hey.
So I want to see the Aztecs play better, but I want to see the offense show what they're really made. I know they have that freshman quarterback that shouldn't be starting but is. Maybe they need a quarterback change. I don't know what it is, but it's kind of disappointing coming out of the gate.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff on Saturday in college football. Also locally, the game I worked on Saturday, USD football 2-0 after beating Central Washington 26-7 at Truro Stadium, and it was a balmy, I think 94 at game time. I want to say again, just the weather down here very uncharacteristic. And thankfully, James, some good news for you. Just check the weather. It's going to be 83 later today, so it won't be as bad as it's been the last 4 to 5 days. Final thoughts, folks, and thanks for bearing with us on this now Tuesday morning. Again, we, as we have said, though, folks, or did talk a little bit, as of Sunday, we have kind of in a way revamped the lineup on Sundays, Mondays, and Tuesdays, and even for that matter, Wednesdays for that matter as well. With plenty of new content. As mentioned, again, we'll have morning tailgate, I believe, coming back on Sunday this week at 6:30 Pacific time. Again, Mondays now, Bro Code is back at 10 p.m., followed by us at 11 o'clock in the evening Pacific time. Then, folks, again, tomorrow or later today on Tuesday, it's our debut show of C2C Game Night. I came up with this idea to fill that Tuesday time slot, and beginning tomorrow, or beginning later today, I should say, on this Tuesday, our panel will jump in, and they will have no clue what game we're playing until we spin the random spinner. But I can say it will be either the Immaculate Grid that we have done here on C2C, or it will be the match game. Yes, we have questions that we will have James and a fellow contestant match the rest of our panel, or we're playing Family Feud's Fast Money.
Yeah.
So I mean, one of those three that will be played at random starting on Tuesday. It's going to be a great night. We're looking forward to it. We are. I'm still setting up some bells and whistles for the program, but we look, though, to make Tuesdays a very fun game night, though, here on C2C. Look for that at 9 p.m. Pacific time, 11 o'clock p.m. Central time. And James, what game do you hope we play on Tuesday? What do you, since we've already done the grid on here, but which one are you hoping gets chosen for our first game night of the year?
I've never done
new season.
I've never done match games, so I think that would be interesting. And the what was it, the Fast Five or the Family
Fast Money?
Fast Money, yeah. I haven't seen that show in forever, but I would love to play that too, because Ben Maller on his late night show on Fox Sports Radio, he does that one morning out of the 4 hours he does his show. He'll do that as a segment, and people call in, and I love hearing kind of the drunk or the sleep deprived answers that come in. So I love that. It's too bad we weren't playing the regular feud too, where
I know
you could go like Steve Harvey and be like, "What did you say?" What?
I still might break that out again. I am hosting game night, so I mean, whatever the first. That. I mean, I just think about name a fruit, cheeseburger. Great answer. I hope we hear a lot of if it is Family Feud, Fast Money. I want to hear a lot of great answers. But again, folks, we're gonna have a great time on Tuesday. Again, game night, C2C game night will debut on Tuesday, as mentioned. Whoever from our panel joins in, we will have no knowledge of what game will be played until we spin the wheel of death.
That's fun.
And it's going to be either the Immaculate Grid, as we have already played here on C2C, the match game, or it's going to be Fast Money from Family Feud. So it's going to be a great time. We hope that you'll tune in and join us here. And please play along with us if you're going to be watching live in the chat box. We'll have a great night on Tuesday. And we hope to make Tuesdays very fun and enjoyable for everyone that does tune in. And also on Wednesdays, again, Brandon and Tim will also be back with their Fantasy Couch, Fantasy Zone football show to talk all things fantasy football on Wednesday as well at 1:30 Pacific time as well. And we will go from there. But again, folks, for Callan McClurg and James Gonzales, we'll see you folks back here later on Tuesday. I believe we will have Rankum with Brandon and Tim in a few hours here on this Tuesday morning. Then we'll gear up for game night on Tuesday. Again, either the Immaculate Grid, the match game, or Fast Money will come your way at 9 p.m. Should be a great night full of laughter, horrible answers, and some great Instagram-worthy content from our first game night on Tuesday night, folks. But with that in mind, for James Gonzales and for Callan McClurg and for the entire C2C cast and crew, saying good night or good day or good morning, wherever you might be joining us from here, folks. Until next time, have a good one. Stay safe and stay healthy. Until next time, have a good one. Bye-bye.